For years, my family called me a failure while eating the food I paid for. When they said my brother was the one with real ambition, I finally walked away. The $6,000 bill I left them was just the beginning. I'm male, 31 years old, and for most of my life I've been the punchline to a joke I never agreed to tell. Not openly, not at first, but in small ways, quiet ways, the kind that accumulate over years until you realize you've been laughing along with people who were never laughing with you. My brother Andrew is different. He's always been the achiever, the one who did everything right. Valedictorian in high school, full ride to a prestigious university, graduated with honors, landed a job at a tech firm before the ink on his diploma was dry. Andrew was the son my parents talked about at barbecues, at church, at family gatherings, where distant relatives asked how everyone was doing. And me, I was the other one. I didn't go to a fancy school. I went to community college, worked full-time while taking classes, graduated with an associate degree in business administration. I got a job in logistics for a mid-sized shipping company. Steady work, decent pay, nothing glamorous. I wasn't changing industries or climbing corporate ladders. I was just getting by. And in my family, getting by wasn't enough. Growing up, Andrew got the praise, the attention, the belief that he'd go places. I got the subtle reminders that I wasn't keeping up, the offhand comments that felt like jokes, but landed like judgments. Ronald is practical, Dad would say when someone asked about me. Practical. The word he used when he didn't know what else to say. He's doing his best. Mom would add, her tone gentle but resigned, like my best was something to be pitied rather than celebrated. I learned to accept it, learned to show up, stay quiet, not make waves. I was the dependable one, the one who helped move furniture when someone needed it, the one who lent money when bills came up short, the one who covered dinner checks without being asked because it was easier than watching everyone fumble with their wallets and pretend they'd forgotten theirs. I funded Andrew's going-away party when he left for college, paid for the cake, the decorations, the catering Mom insisted we needed. No one thanked me. They thanked Mom for organizing it. I covered Dad's car repair 2 years ago when the transmission died, and he didn't have the cash. He promised to pay me back. He never did. And when I didn't bring it up, he forgot it ever happened. I paid for family dinners more times than I could count, birthdays, anniversaries, celebrations for Andrew's internships and job offers and promotions. I sat at those tables, smiled, clapped when everyone else clapped, and picked up the check when it came. It became routine, expected, invisible, just like me. The invitation to Andrew's graduation dinner came a week ago, a text from Mom. Andrew's graduating with his MBA this weekend. We're having a celebration dinner at Terry's on Saturday, 7:00 p.m. Hope you can make it. Terry's the same upscale restaurant where we'd celebrated Andrew's undergrad graduation, where appetizers cost $20 and entrees ran triple digits, the kind of place that required reservations months in advance. I texted back, "I'll be there." Mom replied with a smiley face emoji. No one asked if I needed help with anything. No one checked if I had plans or if I was doing okay, just an invitation to show up and play my role, the dependable one, the quiet one, the one who paid. I stared at my phone for a long time that night, the screen dimming, then going dark. I thought that's what family did, showed up for each other, celebrated together. I didn't know yet that I was the only one still believing that. The restaurant was exactly as I remembered, low lighting, white tablecloths, the kind of hushed atmosphere where even laughter felt expensive. I arrived at 7:00 on the dot and found the private dining room in the back. The long table was already half filled. Mom and Dad sat at the center, Andrew beside them, grinning and relaxed in a way that came easy to people who'd never doubted their place in the world. A few aunts and uncles filled the other seats, cousins I hadn't seen in months. Andrew's girlfriend Sheila looking polished in a cocktail dress that probably cost more than my rent. I took the empty seat at the far end of the table, the one farthest from Andrew. No one commented. No one saved me a closer spot. Mom glanced up, smiled briefly. "Ronald, you made it." "Wouldn't miss it," I said. Andrew raised his glass, already halfway through a beer. "Good to see you, man." I nodded. That was the extent of our greeting. The waiter came around taking drink orders, describing specials in a smooth, practiced voice: filet mignon, pan-seared salmon, lobster tail with truffle butter. Dad ordered a Scotch neat. Mom chose wine. Andrew got another beer, and Sheila ordered champagne. The rest of the table followed suit, calling out drinks and appetizers with the ease of people who weren't checking prices. I ordered water. The waiter raised an eyebrow but said nothing. Dinner unfolded in waves. Appetizers arrived first: oysters, crab cakes, stuffed mushrooms. Plates circulated, everyone reaching, laughing, sharing. I took a piece of bread from the basket and ate it slowly, watching. Dad launched into a toast before the entrees arrived, standing with his scotch raised high. "To Andrew," he said, his voice booming in the small room, "who proves that hard work and real ambition pay off. We're so proud of you, son." Everyone clapped. Andrew grinned, ducking his head in mock humility. Dad continued, his gaze sweeping the table. "Finally, someone in this family with real ambition." The words hung in the air. A few people chuckled, assuming it was a joke, but Dad's eyes landed on me for just a second and I saw the truth. It wasn't a joke. Mom jumped in her tone light but pointed, "Not everyone can be a success story." Laughter rippled around the table, louder this time, knowing. A few cousins glanced at me, smirking, enjoying the moment. I sat still, my hands folded in my lap, my expression blank. Sheila whispered something to Andrew, who laughed and shook his head. More laughter followed, spreading like a wave. I was the punchline again. The entrees arrived: Andrew's filet, Dad's ribeye, Mom's salmon, Sheila's lobster tail glistening under the soft light. The waiter set a grilled chicken breast in front of me, the cheapest thing on the menu. I ate in silence while the table buzzed with conversation stories about Andrew's internship, his new job, his plans to buy a condo, his bright future. No one asked about me. No one looked my way. When dessert came, I declined, just coffee black. The waiter brought the check on a small silver tray, setting it in the center of the table. Dad glanced at it, then looked away. Mom did the same. Andrew kept talking, oblivious. I reached for my wallet, pulled out my card, and placed it on top of the check. The waiter returned, processed it, and brought the receipt. I signed for my meal, $38 chicken coffee tip included. Then I stood. Conversation paused. A few heads turned. "Leaving already?" Mom asked, surprised. "Early day tomorrow," I said. "Thanks for coming," Andrew said, distracted, already turning back to Sheila. I walked out of the private dining room, through the main restaurant, past the host stand, and into the cool night air. Behind me, the laughter continued, muffled by glass and distance, and in my pocket, my phone stayed silent because I hadn't paid the full bill, just mine. I woke up at 6 Hujro the way I always did. The apartment was quiet, sunlight filtered through the blinds, slicing across the floor in pale lines. I made coffee, sat at the small kitchen table, opened my laptop, and checked emails, work messages, a few spam newsletters, nothing urgent. My phone sat beside the laptop screen, dark and still. I thought about the dinner, the laughter, the way Dad's words had landed, sharp and casual, like they didn't matter. Finally, someone in this family with real ambition. I played it over in my mind, testing it for other meanings, looking for some way to soften the blow. There wasn't one. He'd meant it. Mom had reinforced it, and everyone had laughed. I sipped my coffee, staring at the wall, feeling the weight of years pressing down on me. Not anger, not yet, just a cold, clarifying understanding. I'd been the invisible financier for so long that they'd stopped seeing me as anything else. Every family dinner I'd paid for, every celebration I'd funded, every time I'd covered a bill or sent money or quietly handled the check without complaint, it had all added up to this: a joke, a punchline, a son who lacked ambition. I opened my banking app and reviewed the charges from last night. $38 my meal, my responsibility. Then I thought about the $6,000 bill I'd left behind, appetizers for 12 entrees, drinks, desserts, wine, champagne, the private dining room fee, $6,000 give or take, and none of it mine. I leaned back in my chair, exhaling slowly. For years, I'd picked up those checks without being asked. I'd become the default payer, the one who made sure everything was handled, everyone was taken care of. No one had to worry. But last night, I'd walked away, and no one had noticed, not when I signed the receipt for my meal, not when I stood up and said goodbye, not when I walked out the door. They'd assumed, expected, taken for granted, because that's what I always did. Except this time I didn't. My phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen, a call, unknown number. I answered, "Hello." "Hi, is this Ronald Rogers?" A woman's voice, professional, slightly strained. "Yes." "This is Terry's restaurant. We're calling regarding last night's dinner. There seems to be an issue with the payment. I set my coffee down, my expression calm. What kind of issue? The full balance wasn't settled. Only one meal was paid for. The remaining charges total $6,200. And you're calling me why? She hesitated. Your card was used for the partial payment, so we assumed you were handling the bill for the group. I paid for my meal. That's all I ordered. But the reservation was under your family's name and we were told you'd be covering the dinner. Who told you that? Silence. Ma'am, I said, my voice even. I paid for what I consumed. If there's an outstanding balance, you'll need to contact the other guests. We've tried. The cards on file were all declined. I almost smiled. That's not my problem. Mr. Rogers, this is a significant amount. We need to resolve this. Then I suggest you reach out to Andrew Rogers. It was his graduation dinner. Or my father, Philip Rogers, or my mother, Anna. They all ate. They're all responsible. Please, Mr. Rogers. I hung up, set the phone down on the table, and for the first time in years, I felt something close to satisfaction. I wasn't always the one who paid. When I was 12, Dad took us out for my birthday, a chain restaurant with sticky menus and a dessert that came with a candle. The waiter brought the check and Dad made a show of reaching for his wallet, then paused. You got this, sport, he said, grinning. You're practically a man now. I didn't have any money. I was 12. Andrew laughed. Mom smiled. Dad paid, but the joke stuck. When I was 16, I got my first job bagging groceries at a supermarket. I saved every paycheck, proud of the small stack of bills in my desk drawer. Andrew's birthday came around. The family went to a nicer place this time, steaks and loaded baked potatoes. When the check arrived, Dad glanced at me. You're working now, right? Want to chip in? I handed over $40, half of what I'd saved. No one offered to split it. No one said I didn't have to. They just took it. When I was 22, fresh out of community college, I got invited to Andrew's undergrad graduation dinner. Same restaurant, same setup, expensive food, expensive drinks. The check came to $2,200. Dad looked at it, whistled low. That's steep. Mom frowned. We can't afford this right now. And then they both looked at me. I just started. My job barely had anything in savings, but I pulled out my card and paid. Andrew thanked me with a quick nod, already distracted by friends who'd shown up to congratulate him. The pattern continued. Dad's 60th birthday I paid, Mom's retirement party I paid, Andrew's promotion celebration I paid, family vacations where everyone assumed I'd cover the resort fees, holiday dinners where the checks somehow always ended up in front of me, casual lunches that turned into $100 tabs. I kept a mental tally at first, rough numbers estimates, but eventually I stopped counting. It was easier that way, easier to just pay and move on than to sit with the uncomfortable truth that no one ever offered to split the cost. No one ever asked if I could afford it. No one ever thought to say thank you beyond a distracted nod or a quick, appreciate it, man. I became the default, the assumption, the silent ledger that balanced their books. And the worst part, I let it happen. I told myself it was what family did, that it didn't matter who paid as long as everyone was together, that love wasn't transactional. But sitting in my apartment, replaying years of dinners and celebrations and moments where I'd been used without acknowledgement, I understood the truth. It was transactional. It always had been. I gave. They took. I showed up. They laughed at my expense. I funded their joy. They dismissed my worth. And last night when Dad said I lacked ambition and Mom agreed when the table erupted in laughter at my expense, I finally saw it clearly. I wasn't family. I was a resource. And resources don't get celebrated. They get used up. That realization didn't sting the way I thought it would. It settled over me like frost, cold and final. And somewhere beneath the cold, something harder took root: resolve. Because if I was just a resource to them, then it was time to stop being available. The call started an hour after the restaurant. My phone lit up. Dad's name flashed across the screen. I declined it. It rang again. Mom this time declined. A text from Andrew. Dude, what's going on? Restaurant called saying the bill wasn't paid. I didn't respond. Another call, Dad again. I let it ring until it went to voicemail. I turned my phone face down on the table and went back to my coffee. 10 minutes later, the voicemail notification appeared. I played it on speaker, my expression flat. Dad's voice tight with frustration. Ronald, the restaurant's calling about a $6,000 bill. They said you only paid for your meal. What the hell is going on? Call me back now. I deleted it. Another voicemail. Mom, this time, her tone strained. Ronald, honey, there's been some kind of mistake. The restaurant says we owe money. Can you call them and sort it out? I'm sure it's just a mix-up. Deleted. Then Andrew. Seriously, man. You left us with the bill. That's messed up. Call Dad back. Deleted. My phone rang again, this time an unknown number. I answered, hello. Ronald, it's your father. His voice was sharp, controlled anger simmering beneath the surface. What the hell were you thinking? I was thinking I'd pay for my meal. You left us with a $6,000 bill. I left you with the bill for what you ordered. You always covered dinner, you know that. Do I? What's that supposed to mean? I leaned back in my chair, my voice calm. It means I paid for what I ate. If you wanted me to cover the entire table, you should have asked. We shouldn't have to ask. We're family. Am I? Silence. What's that supposed to mean? He repeated quieter this time. It means I'm tired of being the punchline dad. You're overreacting. Am I? You stood up in front of everyone and said I lacked ambition. Mom agreed. The whole table laughed. And you think I'm overreacting? It was a joke. It didn't feel like one. Ronald, you're being ridiculous. It's just money. We'll pay you back. When? He didn't answer. That's what I thought. I said, fine, we'll handle the bill ourselves. Good, but don't expect us to forget this. I won't. I hung up. My phone buzzed immediately, a text from Mom. Please don't do this. We're family. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed a reply. Family doesn't humiliate each other for laughs. I hit send and turned my phone off. The apartment fell silent, no buzzing, no ringing, just the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of traffic outside. I poured another cup of coffee and sat by the window watching the city move below. For years I'd carried their weight without complaint, paid their bills, funded their celebrations, absorbed their jokes, and last night I'd finally set it down. I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt free because the thing they didn't understand was this: I wasn't refusing to help out of spite. I was refusing because they'd never valued what I gave. And I was done giving to people who only saw me as a wallet. That evening, I pulled out my laptop and started digging, not out of anger, not out of revenge, just curiosity. I wanted to see the full picture, to understand exactly how much I'd given over the years. I logged into my bank account and started reviewing transactions, dinners, bills, transfers. I went back 3 years, then 5, then 10. The numbers climbed steadily. Andrew's undergrad graduation dinner, $2,200. Dad's birthday dinner in Hasha, $800. Mom's retirement party, $3,400. Family vacation to the beach, $4,500 for the resort split among 4 people. But I'd covered 2 shares because it would be easier. Christmas dinners, Thanksgiving meals, random Tuesday lunches that turned into $300 tabs. I made a spreadsheet, organized it by date, event, and cost. The total came to $47,000. $47,000 over 10 years. Not counting the smaller things, the groceries I bought when I visited, the gas money. I never asked to be repaid, the gifts I bought for birthdays and holidays, while receiving gift cards and generic thank you notes in return. $47,000. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the number on the screen. It wasn't the money that hurt, not really. It was the realization that in 10 years, not once had anyone offered to split a check. Not once had anyone asked if I could afford it. Not once had anyone said, let me get this one. They just assumed, expected, taken. And when I finally stopped, they acted like I was the problem. I printed the spreadsheet, 3 pages of dates, descriptions, and amounts. I hole-punched them and slid them into a binder, not to show anyone, just to have to remind myself that I wasn't imagining things, that this wasn't about one dinner or one joke. It was about a decade of being treated like an ATM with legs. My phone, still off, sat on the desk beside the laptop. I turned it on, bracing for the flood of notifications. They came immediately: texts, missed calls, voicemails. I skimmed through them. Dad, we scraped together enough to pay the restaurant. Happy now. Mom, I don't understand why you're being so hurtful. Andrew, you're acting like a child. Grow up. An aunt I barely knew. Your parents are devastated. You should be ashamed. I read each one without emotion. Then I opened a new note on my phone and typed a single sentence. I paid for my meal. They paid for theirs. That's how it works. I didn't send it to anyone. I just saved it a reminder for myself. Then I blocked Dad's number. Mom's, Andrew's, the aunts, one by one I severed the lines of communication, not out of spite, not out of anger, out of self-preservation, because every message was the same, guilt, blame, accusations. Not once did anyone say, "We're sorry." Not once did anyone acknowledge the joke at my expense, the years of taking without asking, the assumption that I existed to fund their lives. They just wanted me to fall back in line to apologize for disrupting their routine, to go back to being the silent wallet who paid without question, and I was done. I closed the laptop and looked at the binder on my desk. $47,000, 10 years. Countless dinners and celebrations and moments where I'd been invisible, except when the check arrived. I didn't need anyone to see the spreadsheet. I didn't need to prove anything. I just needed to know for myself that I wasn't wrong, that I wasn't the problem, that walking away from that dinner, from that bill, from that laughter, was the right thing to do. And sitting there in the quiet of my apartment, surrounded by evidence of a decade of being used, I knew one thing for certain: I wasn't going back, not to their dinners, not to their celebrations, not to the role they'd assigned me. I was done being the punchline, and I was done paying for the privilege. The fallout came faster than I expected. 3 days after the dinner, I heard through a mutual cousin that my parents had maxed out 2 credit cards trying to cover the restaurant bill. They'd scraped together the money by pulling from their savings, borrowing from Andrew, and asking relatives for short-term loans. The cousin called me, her voice hesitant. "Ronald, your mom's really upset. She's been calling everyone, trying to explain what happened." "What's she saying?" "That you abandoned them at the restaurant, that you left them with a huge bill out of nowhere." "Did she mention why I left?" Silence. "Exactly." I said, "Look, I'm not taking sides, I just thought you should know." "Thanks." She hung up and I went back to my evening. A week later, Andrew called from a new number. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. "What?" "We need to talk," he said, his voice tight. "No, we don't." "Yes, we do. You embarrassed Mom and Dad, you embarrassed me. I paid for my meal and left. How was that embarrassing?" "You know what you did." "I know what I didn't do," I replied. "I didn't laugh when Dad said I lacked ambition. I didn't join in when Mom called me a failure. I didn't make jokes at your expense in front of a room full of people. It wasn't like that." "It was exactly like that." He exhaled sharply. "Fine, whatever, but you need to pay us back for the bill." I almost laughed. "Excuse me." "We had to cover your share. The least you can do is reimburse us." "My share," I repeated slowly. "I ordered a $38 meal. I paid for it. That's my share. You always cover the dinners. And that was a mistake." "Ronald, come on. Don't be like this." "Like what? Like someone who doesn't want to be humiliated and then expected to pay for the privilege?" "You're being petty." "I'm being done." I hung up. 2 weeks later, I ran into Mom at a grocery store, pure coincidence. She was pushing a cart down the cereal aisle when she saw me. She froze. "Ronald." I nodded. "Mom, we need to talk." "No, we don't." "Please, just 5 minutes." I glanced at my watch. "You have 3. She sighed, her jaw clearly unhappy with the condition, but she took it. "I don't understand why you're doing this. We're family." "Are we?" "Of course we are." "Then why does it only feel like family when I'm paying for something?" "That's not fair." "Isn't it? When was the last time you called me just to see how I was doing? When was the last time anyone in this family asked me about my life, my job, my plans? When was the last time I was invited to something that didn't end with me covering the check?" She looked away, her expression pained. "We didn't mean to make you feel that way." "But you did." "It was just a joke, Ronald. Your father didn't mean anything by it. He meant it, and you backed him up and everyone laughed." "I'm sorry," she said quietly. The words should have meant something. Maybe once they would have, but standing in that grocery store aisle, staring at a woman who'd spent years taking me for granted, I felt nothing. "It's too late for sorry," I said. "Don't say that." "Why not? It's the truth. You don't get to humiliate me in public, treat me like an ATM for a decade, and then apologize when the money stops." "Ronald." I'm done, Mom, with the dinners, with the jokes, with pretending this is normal. I'm done. I walked away, leaving her standing in the aisle, her cart half full, her expression crumbling. I didn't look back. That night, I received a text from Dad. "You're making a mistake." I typed a reply. The only mistake I made was waiting this long. Then I blocked his new number too, because the thing they still didn't understand was this. I wasn't angry. I was free. And I had no intention of going back. 2 months passed. The calls stopped. The texts stopped. The guilt trips and accusations and desperate attempts to pull me back all faded into silence. I changed my number, updated my address with work, and my bank-built walls quietly, methodically, the way I did everything else. One afternoon, I received a letter, not an email, an actual letter, handwritten, postmarked from 2 states away. It was from an uncle I barely knew, someone on Mom's side who'd moved years ago and only showed up for major holidays. "Ronald, I heard what happened. I don't know all the details, but I wanted to say I'm proud of you. I've watched your family take you for granted for years. It's about time someone stood up for themselves. If you ever need anything or just want to talk, I'm here." I read it twice, then I wrote back short, simple, grateful. We started exchanging emails, nothing deep, just check-ins, updates. It wasn't much, but it was more than I'd gotten from my immediate family in years. A month later, I got a promotion at work, a senior role with better pay and actual recognition for the projects I'd been managing quietly for years. I celebrated by taking myself out to dinner, a nice place, ordered what I wanted, paid my own check, tipped well, and it felt good, not just the food, the freedom. That evening, I sat on a park bench near my apartment watching the sun set over the city. The air was cool, the park quiet except for a couple walking their dog and a kid riding a bike in lazy circles. My phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. "Ronald, it's Andrew. I just wanted to say, I think I get it now, what happened at the dinner, why you left. I'm sorry." I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me wanted to respond to say it was okay to rebuild the bridge, but I didn't, because sorry didn't erase 10 years of being invisible. It didn't undo the laughter or the jokes or the assumptions that I existed to fund their lives. And more importantly, I didn't need the apology. I'd already moved on. I deleted the message and put my phone away. The sky turned orange, then pink, then deep purple as the sun dipped below the horizon. I thought about the binder sitting on my desk at home, the spreadsheet, the $47,000, the evidence of a decade spent being used. And I realized something: I didn't need the binder anymore, not to prove anything, not to remind myself, not to justify my decision. I already knew I'd made the right choice. Because sitting on that bench, watching the city settle into evening, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: peace. I wasn't the family wallet anymore. I wasn't the punchline. I wasn't the invisible son who showed up and paid and disappeared. I was just Ronald. And for the first time in my life, that was enough. I stood, brushed off my jeans, and walked home. My apartment was small, quiet, mine. And as I closed the door behind me, I realized I didn't miss them. Not the dinners, not the celebrations, not the laughter that always came at my expense. I missed the idea of what family should be, but I didn't miss what they actually were. And that finally was okay.